Okay, so Matt, so honored to have you on. Matt and I bumped into each other at the DNC. We had a blast. He asked me a couple of questions, especially went into Trump voice. Matt, let me say this. You've made a name for yourself. I mean, with your spot-on impressions of political figures like Trump and Bernie Sanders and, of course, Mitch McConnell. My question to you is, how do you see your comedy contributing to the political discourse, especially in an era where satire often blurs the lines between reality and parody?
I think it's a really great question.
We only ask great questions here on Mea Culpa.
Yeah, you do. I look at I'm just turning you'll edit this. I look at the history of comedy, and I kind of think about what role I want to play in it. So I look at the Johnny Carson model. There was a famous Barbara Walters interview where she asked him, or there was another interview as well, where he was asked, why don't you take serious issues, or why don't you comment on the political issues of the day? And then he said something like, well, I wouldn't want to piss off half my audience. And then he said, there's a real danger when you're a comedian or an entertainer where you get a sense of importance. And he says, I don't think I should use my show to comment on serious issues. And now we're in such a different time where those Stephen Colbert's, those John Oliver's, and also even like George Carlin, I think, helped to like change this Carson idea of what the role of a comedian should be. But for me, I mean, I've always loved comedy. I mean, I've been mimicking people and doing impressions and characters since I was a kid. I didn't really realize what I was doing when I was 4 years old, doing an Austin Powers impression and trying to make my grandparents laugh by doing an impression of my grandfather. So I just pay attention to what people are talking about and what is funny. But in terms of how it affects the discourse, the funny thing is people might say to me, oh, you're too biased, you're only making fun of Trump. But the reality is I'm just repeating the headlines. Like I performed at the Correspondents' Dinner and I made a joke. I said, I'm killing this dinner harder than Kristi Noem kills her puppies. And I didn't really make a joke. I just said a headline. So the news is literally writing itself. I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think comedy can help to sort of tell the truth in a way. But I mean, I don't really think I'm so pointed, particularly in my comedy. I think I'm just kind of making fun of whatever's happening.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, you go. Right. Listen, who doesn't love a great Austin Powers impersonation?
I agree with you.
And it's one of my all-time favorites. Now, let me ask you this though, because you bring up the Correspondents' Dinner, and given our current political climate, you find it more challenging to craft humor that resonates across the political spectrum? Or do you lean into the divisiveness for comedic effect? I mean, how do you navigate that line? Because you gave me a great question to ask you. Obviously, the Correspondents' Dinner, you have both sides of the spectrum. You have both sides. So how do you do that? How do you navigate that?
I mean, it's definitely difficult because no matter what you do, people will say something else. I mean, if I make a Kamala joke, Democrats will probably say, you should go easy on her. Look what the other side is doing. And then if I make a Trump or a J.D. Vance joke, they'll say, why aren't you making fun of the Democrats? So we live in this increasingly polarized society. I think it started the moment Trump came down the escalator. I don't recall our society being this polarized when I was in high school. I think it really started at that moment. But it's a tough thing because it's not 1965 where everyone is watching one late night host and all of America is coming together, and there wasn't social media in the Carson era. There was less information, less opinions. Entertainment was more streamlined. So now anybody can have a show, and that causes people to be consuming a lot more. So I think for me, I just kind of try to do what I always do and just kind of trust my gut and my instinct. And I just kind of just try to be funny. That there's no real way around it. You just kind of have to follow whatever your instinct is.
Yeah, it's funny because Johnny Carson, in his own specific way, while he was always trying to be, proper. You wouldn't remember because you were too young at the time. But in
I watch all the clips though.
In 1973, Johnny Carson had a golfer's wife on it, and I don't remember who the golfer was. And he said to her, what do you do? Because I think he had just won the Masters or something. What do you do to bring him, to help him, to bring him? So she turned around and she goes, I kiss his balls, but before the match for good luck. And that, of course, exploded because we were living in a very different time where to say the word balls on television it was just, it was something that was never going to happen, right? Today, it's commonplace.
Today video of people actually licking balls in Game of Thrones.
It's a totally different universe that we have. So you're very fortunate in that regard because it certainly opens up, your mind to being able to push the boundaries even further than where the boundaries have been pushed.
100%. Like Lenny Bruce was getting arrested for saying the word fuck on a stage. So there's definitely a lot more creative freedom that comedians can have. But with that creative freedom comes the divide, because if I have the ability to comment more freely on the news of the day, then that opens up more of an opportunity for people to get pissed at whatever I'm joking about. I think our society's become way too, like, I'm working with Bill Maher on my show, and I agree with him completely on, like, our society is just way too divided. And Bill's whole point is like, you can't hate half the country, right? And I think, like, in his comedy, he'll just make a joke and everybody will go crazy. It's like what happened in the days where everybody could just laugh and take a goddamn joke.
You also may remember early on, there was a guy named John Valby. Does that name ring a bell to you?
That one does not ring a bell.
So John Valby, he was, I don't know whether he was a comic or a singer and so on. And remember, it was like in the 70s, and he put out this thing called Eat, Suck, Fuck, Gobble, Nibble, Chew, Pussy, Hair, Pie, Finger, Fuck, Screw. And then he would have the audience go back and forth. You got to look it up. This guy really, do you want to talk about somebody that felt the full effect of the law on his back? I mean, he was like a... He wasn't a well-known name, but I remember it from my fraternity days. I remember a friend of mine was explaining this to me, and he actually had a recording of it. I was like, I never heard of this guy. Because like you, I'm a massive, massive George Carlin fan. Because George Carlin,
you can't stand TV.
Yeah, George Carlin didn't just talk politics. He wasn't just funny in his delivery. Yeah.
He was a wordsmith.
And he did it in a genius way. Right? It was just genius how he would take things like almost like a Larry David, takes things that you deal with every single day and he comedicizes it, which I think you have that same exact talent. You're very unique.
Well, no, thank you. And
I'm so sorry. I meant to say you're a unit. No, you're unique. Right word.
No, well, I actually wrote the bit, a house is just a place for your stuff. That's my bit. I wrote it. But yeah, no, he, in terms of the word economy and arranging words, the guy was just a fucking genius. Out of just next level, yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because your impressions are known for their accuracy and humor.
Did ChatGPT write this question?
What's that?
ChatGPT write this question?
No,
I'm kidding.
No, actually, your mom turned around and told me she wanted me to ask something about this.
Okay.
But thank you for that.
Right.
All right.
Right.
When you impersonate people, especially polarizing people, are you more focused on the entertainment, or is there some sort of a deeper commentary that you're trying to make about that person, or about a policy, or about something stupid that they said?
No. At this stage in my career, no. When I'm doing Mitch McConnell and I bring these out, I'm not concerned with. I'm not talking about him blocking Merrick Garland from the Supreme Court, or calling confusing regular Americans with African Americans. I'm just repeating shit he does. So, like, it's not like I'm offering some deep commentary. It's not my fault that the people in charge are out of their goddamn minds, and it's giving me infinite material. So like, maybe it will evolve into a deeper commentary. I can't predict how my career will go. But as of right now, I'm kind of leaning into the silly. Like in my hour of stand-up, I do a bit on Mitch McConnell. How dirty can I get here? Can I get fairly dirty? I do a bit on Mitch McConnell providing oral sex. Let's just eating, grab him by the pussy, if you know what I mean. So I'm a comedian, so like I lean into the silly, but there are definitely, I think it's evolving into like I might offer sort of a light commentary through my comedy, but I don't want to get too much into that right now.
But you see, I ask you that question because when you brought up Bill Maher, right?
Yes.
Bill Maher
He's all commentary.
has a very deep commentary platform. And I get it. And I get it. And I actually applaud a lot of the things. There was a time that I don't know what he was doing. He was trying to change the nature of his show, I guess, to make it more inclusive to all, as opposed to what it really is. It is a center to left of center show.
For sure.
And it needs to stay that way because that's who Bill Maher is. And when Bill Maher starts doing commentary that is right of center, it doesn't jive with the audience.
I think what he does is he has this idea, like what I'm not going to speak to him, but I mean, at least what I've heard him say in interviews is his view is that other hosts of TV shows kind of preach to the same choir, and he tries to kind of offer a different perspective. I don't know how his thought evolution has happened. Maybe as men get older, they get more conservative. I don't know, but I think like he seems to be pretty rational. But
listen, I was on Bill Maher's show. I had a great time. I had a great time with him. I think he's incredibly bright, and I think he's funny. I actually appreciate the deep commentary that he's trying to put forth. Maybe because we have similar. I wouldn't say we're not exact, that's for sure, but we certainly have very similar positions in a lot of things. But then when you're doing these impressions of people, like for example, Donald Trump or Mitch McConnell or even Bernie Sanders, right? They're all polarizing figures depending upon which side of the spectrum that you are on. Do you think that your impersonations of them helps to humanize them, or do you simply think that it just helps to amplify for comedic purposes their flaws as humans?
That's an interesting question. I honestly haven't thought about it in terms of humanizing. I mean, like, I could do a Hitler voice. I mean, I'm Jewish. Like, it's like that. My goal is not to humanize that period of, like, if we're going to go down that road, was Mel Brooks trying to humanize Nazis and the producers? I don't think so. I think he was trying to satirize
99999.
Exactly. So I think
that was me, by the way. I want people to know great. I do some great voices also.
I mean, yes, you do. Anyone can take, you got to take comedy with a grain of salt, I guess. But I don't think I'm trying to maybe in some cases, it's a good question. When I do these especially in the political realm, I don't think humanization is something I'm thinking of. Maybe with certain actors that I do that are a little stiff, I kind of just maybe I'm trying to humanize them a little bit, and then in terms of amplifying them, I guess inevitably I'm amplifying them, because if I'm posting a Trump video or a Tim Walz video, like maybe someone who's never heard of Tim Walz before finds him through my video. So like, yes, I'm amplifying them, but all news, all journalism, I'm not saying I'm a journalist, but all writing, all of that shit amplifies everything. So,
well, let me ask you, did you ever calculate how many actual voices that you do?
I do about over 250, and that includes like dialects and impressions and some people that I know. So yeah, there's a lot a lot of fucking voices, Michael. It's a little bit crazy.
Do you ever turn around sometimes? Because we used to say this about Rich Little. Again, another comic kind of similar to yourself. Nobody ever really knew what his actual voice sounded like because it's somehow just, he was always in a voice. So you never really knew.
Yeah. Rich Little is alive, and he was brilliant. But I mean, I think like for me, what I'm focused on more now is like, I don't really think Rich ever did an interview like this. I mean, I'm doing an hour of stand-up, touring it, and the impressions are probably 30% of that show. And I tell stories and I'm more myself. And now, like through this podcast and other things, I'm offering more of my own, I think, perspective just on whatever is happening. But I also like a lot of inspirations: Bill Hader, Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey. Those guys kind of blended more of comedy with the impression. Like Rich would just kind of be like, "This is Richard Nixon at ordering a glass of wine," or something. But with Phil Hartman, there was a real, like, Dana Carvey, a real kind of comedic undertone, and that's what I'm also really interested in.
How's your Michael Cohen impersonation? I saw it for very brief.
Okay. How's your Michael Cohen? I got to figure it out. I need to figure you out.
It's gonna take a little.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Stay away from my daughter. Okay. You do.
It's gonna take a little bit of time.
It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take a little time. It's not great.
No,
it's gonna happen.
It's okay.
We could reenact some things from Michael's past. That could happen.
Yeah, right? That's very, very, very possible. Let me ask you a question.
Pretty crazy.
Is there one person in particular that you think that you just have down, like literally to a science? I will say that your Donald Trump impersonation is spectacular. Not just because it sounds like him. No. I'm serious. Because the word vomit of words that you just throw out in a sentence that have no meaning, and they're not even supposed to be in the same sentence, which is what Donald does. It's spectacular.
Well, thank you. I think,
well, I appreciate that, Michael. And, it's sad what happened between us, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. It can't be fixed, right? But maybe we'll rehash. Maybe we'll come together. We'll come together. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Come together like Kimberly Guilfoyle and my son. They're coming all over each other, but you can't say that, right? But
I think Howard Stern I have down to a science now. I've got him down, right? So he's got a very deep thing. He's very unique, right? I'd love to do him. So let me ask you this, Michael, right? In your prime, when you were working for Donald, how many women were you banging a year? That's what I want to know, right? See, I got the Howard isms down, but a lot of actors, Paul Giamatti, I've got different athletes. So that's a good question, though. I need to work on you. I got to figure you out.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. So let me ask you this one then. There's so much misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. You know what Donald, or I should say Matt 2.0, what you call fake news. Do you feel any sort of responsibility when you're doing your shtick to ensure that your comedy doesn't somehow inadvertently misinform the audience or sort of provide the validation or the regurgitation of that misinformation, of that fake news? Or is it like, I'm not even thinking about that shit, and I'm just gonna fucking entertain and do the things that I need to do regardless of consequence?
At this stage, I'm a comedian. I don't have a TV show infrastructure behind me with researchers and writers and producers. It's like, if I'm thinking about if JD Vance really fucked his couch or not before I make a joke, it's gonna significantly harm my ability to get any funny content out there. So as far as I'm concerned, if there's a headline like that, I'm gonna make a joke about JD Vance fucking his couch, because I'm not Brian Williams. If I'm a comedian and I'm reporting on the fact that I was on a helicopter in Baghdad, then it's fine, because I'm not Brian Williams. It might be a sarcastic story. But if you're really like a news anchor, a politician or something, I think you should really check yourself. But at the same time, it's an interesting conversation because like there was a big controversy with a comedian who did a special. I won't name names, but he did a special and he kind of like manufactured a story about his past. And I think the controversy there was that there were like death threats involved. And this comedian has now kind of turned into more of like a commentator on things. So I'm not offering an opinion on this necessarily, but I think like, yeah, I mean, if it gets into that territory, if you're kind of George Santos saying or like manufacturing elements of your own biography for comedic effect, then I don't think that is particularly cool. But if you're like doing topical political news and things move quickly, you kind of got to be on the ball. But in terms of fake news, disinformation, ideally, the stuff I'm joking about is real. I think that makes it funnier. But as I progress in my career, and for example, if I have the opportunity to host a late night show or something like that, I'd imagine that the research department or whoever I work with would help to ensure that is taken care of.
I'm certain that they would. But what brings me to that question is when you brought up the so what is Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or you're burning carbs. And it gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, something I need badly, and even stress management. So let me tell you how Lumen works. All you have to do is you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. So here's what Lumen does. Lumen provides crucial insights and helpful guidance for your lifestyle. It requires effort though, and it also requires a lifestyle change to achieve results. Let me be clear, Lumen is not just a weight loss tool. It's about understanding and improving your metabolic health. So let me also tell you why metabolic health matters. It matters because your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimum metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step to improving your health, go right now to lumen.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Washington Correspondent Bureau's dinner. And you got up there and you crushed it. I mean, the place was roaring on both sides of the aisle. And I found that to be interesting because I remember watching when Donald was there and he was being roasted by Barack Obama. And you can see about 60+% of that audience were peeing in their pants, right? And then there was about 35-40% that looked as stoic as Donald did. Yes. And it sort of made me think about the political divide that currently exists in America. And that division, that divisiveness that Donald has created, to me, seems like it's getting wider and wider and wider by the day. You think that comics like yourself play some sort of a role in helping to bridge that divide right? Do you think that maybe this political comedy somehow can take down the wall that sort of creates that divisiveness so that we actually can laugh at one another, that we can laugh at the stupidity, like, for example, the J.D. Vance, taking his sectional, sofa to the prom, or, losing his virginity, to a love seat.
Yeah, I think that comedy, has a healing ability, an ability to take a look back, offer some perspective, and say, everything is temporary. Let's not take this so seriously. Let's just come together and laugh. At the same time, I think like we're in this weird comedic age as well, where, I always defend the comedian, and I think that comedians should have the forum and ability to practice their art form, which is telling jokes. But I think also like there's different groups of comedians now, different groups of people within comedy that are, I would say it's trending a lot more conservative. There's like the Joe Rogan group of people that are probably don't like, as they would refer to as like woke people, and like they think you can't say anything, which I kind of find funny though, because those are the same people, the comedians that are like selling out stadiums, and if you can't say anything, then how can you appeal to that many people? But I think that overall comedy does have that kind of healing ability. Can you ask the question one more time? Because I had another thought in the setup of the question.
Yeah. So what I was asking you is about, because we're so divided as a country. Yeah. So what I'm really looking for is, whether or not you think that comics can help to bridge that divide, so that we can, again, laugh at one another. We can laugh at the insanity and the stupidity of some of these issues.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think 100%. Yeah. I think comics definitely can bridge the divide, because if we're not able to laugh at the most serious issues, then there's no way that that divide will ever be bridged. And who is the one generating the laughter? Ultimately, it's the comedian.
Yeah, I agree. But you used an interesting word, which was, temporary. And one of the things that I am constantly talking about, when you were interviewing me for that short clip, and all the people at the DNC that were, attacking me for interviews, one thing that I say, and I say it quite strongly, I say it very strongly. What Donald Trump is doing is not temporary. If in fact, God forbid a million times, that he's successful in this 2024 election, our democracy will not be temporary. Our democracy will be terminated. And obviously there's nothing funny about that. And that's why I was really kind of asking you, what can comics then do in helping to bridge the divide? Because I do really believe that political comedy has an ability to reach people in a way that even I cannot. Because the people that listen to me, 90% have the same preconceived notions and beliefs, or we'll call them biases, as I have. But comics are very different. And I'm wondering whether you think that that's right.
That what is right exactly?
That comics have that ability, and that they should use that ability to help to bridge this divide.
I think it depends on the kind of comedian that you want to be. I think a lot of comedians would say, I'm in this to do fart and dick jokes, and I don't really care. I just want to like get high and make my fans laugh. But I think now, like I was talking about earlier, it's a different era from that Carson era. And I think that it's a very sides-oriented world. You even see like when Jimmy Fallon had Trump on and rubbed his hair, and then he got into trouble and said he was accused of humanizing him. And like, this is Jimmy Fallon, like the lightest comedian, who just really wanted to appeal to both sides. It kind of like that vintage 60s era talk show host. But Fallon then saw that you can't do that anymore. But I think that for Yeah, I think for comedians, like for the kind of comedian that I want to be, who's like especially in this political world and topical world, yes, is the answer to your question, I guess.
So let me ask this, because I was talking to some friends, and he happens to be a staunch fucking Republican. And I said to him, yeah, when I was at the DNC, he asked me, how did the DNC convention go? And I was showing him pictures. I said, oh, you recognize this guy? So he goes, yeah, that's the guy that does that Mitch McConnell. All the time. So I said, yeah. So he goes, he's an asshole. I said, really? I said, do you know
about
him?
me?
Yeah. So he said to me that you're an asshole. And I said, really? I said, why would you say that? Do you know him? So I said, because I don't think he's an asshole. Anybody that could make fun of another guy freezing like the way that Mitch McConnell did, I took offense to it. So it kind of maybe came up with my next question that I wanted to ask you, because I face this all the time. Right? I'm sorry. I'm making Matt laugh.
I really hope he's watching.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to make sure.
Listen, I'm really deeply sorry if I hit a nerve, and just know that if I could do it all over again, I would.
So Matt, let me ask you this. And let me ask you this. You ever face backlash from a public figure or politician or somebody just in the street because you've impersonated somebody like this Mitch McConnell, or from one of their supporters? You ever face any backlash?
Not to jinx anything, but thankfully not yet.
Well, fortunately.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
except for your Republican friend over there. So
fortunately, he'll probably never run into you because it's just not his thing, I guess. But have you dealt with then criticism and it could be from either side of the political spectrum? Have you ever dealt with any criticism coming your way for the impersonations, or not even so much the impersonation as much as the content of the? By the way,
that's the thing that like Rich Little wasn't dealing with this, because like Rich would do very light impressions, but I'm actually like you said, there is sort of a commentary, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yes, I mean, I'm a comedian. I just turned 26, growing up in the age of social media. So Jerry Seinfeld, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, these guys weren't testing material and having infinite amounts of responses back to them immediately. This is a highly unusual way to start coming up in the entertainment business, and more specifically the comedy jokes business, where if I have a new joke or bit, I will post that on my Instagram, my TikTok, all my platforms, and then people will feel free to offer their opinion. So the answer is yes. No matter if I posted a picture that said the sky is blue, people would say, how dare you? This is so wrong. It's clearly red. Why aren't you talking about the people that think it's also red? You're not on our side. Stop saying the sky is blue, you liberal woke cuck. And then if I did the exact opposite, they would say, the sky is clearly blue. Stop saying it's red. Like, I don't know if this makes sense here, but
it does to me, because I get this shit every single day.
No matter what you do, in this society we live in today, someone is going to anonymously comment and wipe the Cheeto dust off their fat fingers and then go back into their masturbation cave and never walk out because they have nothing else better to do than comment negatively on a creative person's content who's putting themselves out there. And it's just funny. Like, we live in this jealous, polarized world now where people will try to bring others down. And I admire people like yourself too, who put their opinions out there and their content out there, and they're willing to engage with people and ask questions. And then some loser on social media will just say, oh, this person sucks or not funny or whatever, because they're just jealous and they have absolutely nothing going on. But I would rather pay attention on what I can control and focus on succeeding and hopefully continuing to kill the game, and that's it. I don't know if I answered your question.
You have. Now, I wanted to ask you, though, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to ask you this question.
Yes.
You said you started doing impersonations at 4 and so on.
Yes.
And I used to do the same shit at the dinner table, with my folks and my siblings and all that. What's the process that you go through now when you're developing an impression of somebody? Like, I'm sure my audience is really wondering, what is it that you focus on? Is it the voice? Is it the mannerism? Is it their gestures? Is like you're constantly doing the accordion hands of Donald Trump, or the fingers of Bernie Sanders? I mean, your mannerisms, your persona, your duplication of their persona is really fucking spot on, dude. So what's the process that you use?
I just watch so many movies and shows, and like I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and when I'm just alone, I just kind of start to. My sister called me a glorified parrot, which is probably going to be a great name for a special one day. But I just like I'll walk down the street as King Charles.
I put my hands behind my back and I start talking like everybody in the crowd. It's quite fun though. All the words that come together, It's a lot of fun to do this. All the words are strung together just like this.
But I don't know if it's a process. It's more just like Don Rickles said, comedy is a personality, and I relate to it. Like I just will I'll call my friends up or my mom, and I'll be like, hey mom, how are you? This is Barack Obama. What time does your flight land? When do you get it? Like it just starts to happen. It's very weird. It's not normal. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's a lot of repetition. I also like to know what I'm saying and have substance and comedy behind the character. So it's not enough to just have the voice and the mannerisms. I also want to be funny.
But when you were interviewing me at the DNC, you didn't have a script or anything. So there's a lot of shit in your head that's swirling around. And so what made you decide, other than, of course, it's the common theme of Donald Trump is, obviously, always using the dog, sort of
like a dog, right?
Sneeze for the truth. I mean, how do you have this in your head? Is it that you've prepared it? Because it almost seems as if though there's never two spots by you that are duplicative.
I just, like I said, it's like, I guess luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I mean, I didn't know I was going to necessarily run into you. And I just, I read a lot. I know what's happening. And I memorize a lot of weird quotes. And I think I have a sense of these different people that I'm commenting on. So luckily I didn't have a script. I just went up to you and we did a great video, and we're going to do more.
For sure.
But it's crazy because I'm known for my on the street run-ins, because I've met a lot of celebrities on the sidewalk. Like I met Andy Cohen, John Oliver, Sebastian Maniscalco, Rami Malek, different people that I do impressions of. Like I've run into them literally on the street, and I was ready. Like when I met Andy Cohen, he goes, "You're really young and cute."
But for me, this summer has been a scorcher. I mean, I enjoy walking Central Park. And after I do my 4 miles, I got to be honest, my underwear feels like I just came out of the pool. But now I wear my Tommy John underwear. Let me be clear about this. Tommy John makes me feel fresher, cooler, stylish, drier, and more comfortable overall than other brands of underwear, especially in warm summer temperature. Lightweight, meshy, breathable, cooling fabrics. I mean, you know what that equals. It equals no sweat. Tommy John underwear, it's soft and it's comfortable, and they don't ride up on you, and they keep you really cool, which is the important thing when you're talking about the oppressive heat wave that we're living through. So not like many of the other brands that I used to wear, Tommy John is different. It's different from the other underwear that I just don't buy anymore. And Tommy John fabrics, they keep you 2 to 3 times cooler and they dry. Get a load of this. 4 to 5 times faster than regular cotton underwear, which is perfect for your summer travel. So shop Tommy John right now for huge summer savings and get 25% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. Are you listening to what I'm telling you? Shop Tommy John right now for these huge savings. It's 25% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. See site for details.
Yeah, and you're Jewish. Amazing. Yes. So I was ready for that moment.
I also saw you did one on Instagram with Alec Baldwin. That was
Alec
classic.
Baldwin. That's right. We ran into each other, and we just started doing a bit. I mean, it's wild.
But you almost take people off guard. Like, Alec Baldwin is a seasoned actor. I mean, this is not a guy who gets sort of tongue-tied. Have you ever, even Andy Cohen, and I know Andy Cohen, right? He's
a cousin.
No, we've actually talked about that. But when, I'll bump into him all the time in Sag Harbor and so on, and I know him from here in the city. But it's not easy to get Andy Cohen tongue-tied. But you did. If you notice, he's sitting there and it's like, I don't know if he wanted just to pet you, right? Or he was just sitting, he was actually tongue-tied. But so was Alec Baldwin when you were doing it. They just don't know how to respond to you because you sound like them speaking to them. And with all due respect, it's a little fucking unnerving.
I think they've all gone very smoothly. I think the videos have gone very well. And they seem to have a great time with it. I have a very good read on people, just inherently. I can read vibes. I can read rooms. I'm the youngest kid. I can see signals from my mother at the table when I shouldn't be saying something, squeeze me or kick me under the table or widen her eyes like this. So I do it out of respect, not ambushing these people, unless it was George Santos, who I saw on the sidewalk in DC and I ambushed him. But everything else is like, I don't just go up to them and start filming. I will say, hi, just sorry to bother you. But that was like a few years ago. And now it's evolved into my red carpet stuff. And, as I've been climbing up, it's more like it's planned and coordinated. But yeah, I'd imagine it's probably a little weird when someone sounds exactly like you.
It's true. It is. Is there a line that you won't cross?
I think again, like I said, I trust my instincts and I have a really good read on the situation. Like, I got to do a video with a certain former president recently that I'm not able to, I don't think, whatever. I think I can talk about it soon, but, and let's just say I wasn't going to make any birth certificate jokes necessarily, but it would have been funny. But no, I have a good sense on people. I think I can. It's a lot easier too when people have a good sense of humor about themselves, and that happens, I find, with maybe some actors and comedians, obviously. But yeah, but in terms of a line I wouldn't cross, like I think like what Sacha Baron Cohen does in character is a different fucking level. Like he's a genius. Like, I'm not sure if I would necessarily go as far as that, but that would be insane if I ever did that. That would be fucking crazy.
You think? So let me ask you this then. How do you keep your comedy fresh and meaningful, especially when this political news cycle is so chaotic? It is so grim. It is so continuously changing by the second. How do you keep it fresh? Because after a while, there's yesterday's news, yesterday's funny, and today's funny.
I think for me, I just don't even think about it. I'm just a product of my generation. I'm just doing what I'm doing. Like, I'm a comedian now. So I don't even think about keeping it fresh. I like to think like if Mike Nichols and Elaine May were alive, they'd be on TikTok. Like they'd be just. It's just I'm creating stuff now. Like if Jonathan Winters, or if I'm just trying to think of like old references, but more political. Like if you're a guy like Von Meter was a guy who got famous. He only did one impression. He did a JFK impression.
Is he related to Von Schitzenpants?
I don't think so. Oh. But Von Meter looked like JFK. He got known for doing JFK. And then the day after JFK got killed, Lenny Bruce went on stage and said, Von Meter's fucked, which is hysterical. And he was fucked, and he never had a career after that. But that's a unique case. But for me, like, I think I'm really happy that I'm known for being in so many worlds. Like, obviously, I'm getting a lot of momentum in the political space, but I do like this Hollywood, Golden Globes, red carpet stuff. And I just hosted the NHL Awards. So I'm doing sports stuff. I'll be at the US Open this weekend. So I have a lot of interests. I'm in a lot of different worlds, and there's just infinite material to pull from. But the political stuff is the stuff that excites me the most. And seemingly, it's never going to end in terms of source material. It's like, even in a post-Trump world, these characters we are dealing with are out of their goddamn minds. So it's great for business. I'll tell you that much. It's great for business.
That's certainly for sure. But, look, you're a Gen Zer. And,
yes,
it's an area, it's a group that is extremely important for the victor in this upcoming 2024 election.
Sure.
The Gen Zers are, I believe, the largest voting class that if they all voted. You have obviously a very special place in that community because you're part of that community, and they relate to you and you relate to them. Have you ever thought for a moment about using your platform to directly advocate for or against a specific political candidate?
That's another good question.
Because obviously, if you were stumping for Kamala Harris, chances are the Gen Zers or any person in the audience who is center or right of center, especially the ultra MAGAs, clearly would never be a Matt Friend, advocate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of doing what I'm doing, I haven't really publicly and made a full-blown endorsement of anything. I'm just kind of getting content and doing my thing. But obviously things evolve. So like, I can't say what I'll do in 10 years. But I haven't done that recently.
Would you ever consider
doing Maybe that? It's possible. For a small loan of $130,000, and anything's possible, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Anything's possible, right?
Yeah, you could definitely say that one again. Yeah, and you remember when it's unbelievable. Would you also say that a lot of your comedy is clearly satire?
Yes,
right. I mean,
it is.
It's
100%.
So, what's your take then? In an era that we're going through right now, when so many people actually look to TikTok, they look to Instagram, they look to these podcasts, they look to all these various different social media platforms for their news. You ever see this again? You ever see this as like a you ever see this as like an opportunity for you? Again, going back to my previous question, which do you see it as an opportunity for you to actually take just an emphatic stand on behalf of one candidate and then use the platforms, because you have a pretty big social media platform following, to use it in order to, again, advocate for legitimate news using your comedic talents?
If that's, I could do anything. I mean, I theoretically, I could take my platform and become use it to teach people about investment banking if I wanted to. Like, I mean,
why
but
do you do it? Do you do Kramer?
Yeah, I don't. Jim Cramer. Yeah, I got to do a Kramer. Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question, and I haven't. It sounds like a political diplomatic answer, but just my focus is on building my brand and on comedy right now. That's kind of my focus instead of like necessarily using what I have built to advocate for something. But that will potentially evolve. I mean, obviously I'm a human being and there's things that I care about. And I was just at the DNC. I did videos with Kamala Harris. So, I mean, like, and people can take from that whatever they will, but I'm sure that will evolve. And obviously my platform is big and is continuing to grow every day. So I think it's probably inevitable, I would say.
So let me ask you, you're 26 years old. When did you
Yes.
actually start your professional career? You know, obviously you've been doing this since you were 4, right? But
Yeah.
when did you actually start this as a profession? When did you make this into a career?
So I was in college and then I was at NYU and I graduated in the pandemic. So the timing was really kind of perfect for me because obviously COVID was horrible, but it benefited me in the sense of this new creator
economy. Why do you say that COVID was terrible, quite frankly?
Yeah, why would
it didn't
you
even
say
exist.
That? You put bleach in your veins, right?
But there was this new creator economy built, and it was a moment where I was graduating, finishing my last semester of college at home. That's 2020 in the pandemic, and it was a moment where everyone was at home, and suddenly this new app was beginning called TikTok, which had an algorithm that enabled people to get discovered in ways that had never been thought of previously through the For You page, where content was actually shown to you instead of people that you follow. Mm-hmm. So it didn't have to be you follow me and you see me. It was like this app will show you me. And that was brilliant. And then I just started to take advantage of these tools early on. And then things started to happen in the beginning of 2020 where I was posting like a maniac, creating videos every day, going live on TikTok every day, had no followers. And then I created a mini late night talk show with my friend from college. We called it Quarantine. I wrote like over 55 episodes, topical monologues. I did sketches, interviews.
I would have had you on, but you were probably in jail. So that's a separate conversation.
You know,
Michael,
you're a nasty guy.
You're a nasty
Quite
guy.
frankly,
No,
you're
but
nasty.
they don't have ring lights up in cell 6, right? But
I was cell 46.
We joke because we love. I'm like Rickles. I kid because I love. But and then I started to build this following, and then things started to happen where like the Today Show had me on, and Jimmy Kimmel showed one of my bits during his monologue, and then all these different local shows had me on, and then I moved back to New York. 2021, did my first full hour of stand-up attempt at it. And then, just the past like year, especially this year, I've just been building. I did Rockin' Eve in January with Ryan Seacrest, did the Netflix as a Joke Festival. I hosted the NHL Awards, did the Correspondents' Dinner, was just on like the NBC Olympic show with Kevin Hart. So it's just, it's pretty wild because I'm also firmly aware and grateful because I realize that it's unusual like to have this amount of stuff happen, success early on. Like a lot of people might have to, like wait tables or find a way to make money as they support their goal or their dream. But the timing was just kind of wild where I was able to start fully supporting myself with no help right after college, like literally right, like during that period of time.
Are you back in New York now?
I'm in New York.
So what's your favorite comedy place to do stand-up?
I like The Stand in New York. It's kind of the club that has made me a comedian. I love The Stand, Gotham Comedy Club. Caroline's is now closed.
Yep.
But I like The Stand a lot in New York. And I just did the Gramercy Theater, which is a bigger theater here in New York. It was like over 550 people, sold it out. Record numbers. Sean Spicer can attest. Record numbers. Yeah.
Do you do Sean Spicer?
I need to squeeze my balls very tightly, and then I think maybe a loud high pitched noise will come out.
Let me ask you this: is there anybody that you find that you've tried to do that you just find particularly challenging, to impersonate, and what is it that makes them difficult? Is it because I think I've heard you do so many different dialects and
yeah, there's I mean, certainly like some women, I would say, but I think if I really stick to one, I can figure it out. Like a little higher pitch might be more difficult. Like you said, Sean Spicer might be a little harder. But like I just started doing Tim Walz. I got him down pretty quickly. So Tim Walz, I can't wait to debate the guy. As soon as we win this dang thing, we're going to pour a gallon of Gatorade over Kamala's face. Take care of business. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then, because we're kind of rounding up here. Obviously we're approaching.
You sure you don't want to do 7 more hours?
Yeah, we could easily do that. As we're approaching the 2024 elections. How do you see yourself? How do you see the role of political comedy evolving up into the November election?
By the way, these are great questions, I have to say. I think that it's going to get increasingly more heated. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's see who stays alive for the next 2 months. Yeah. I mean, seriously. But I think that political comedy, again, like it's almost like a news source. So I guess maybe you could argue a responsibility for the stuff you're saying.
Well, that's one of the earlier questions that you said.
Yeah, but
you're not thinking about the consequence, and I understand that. That's not your job.
If you're Stephen Colbert, I mean, you could argue there's more consequences. He's he has a TV show and a full operation, and there's it is kind of like more of a comedic pundit show now. But I think, I think there's just an obligation for kind of satirists, comedians to not necessarily be afraid of one side and to just keep going, I guess.
I ask you this question because, every night, like everybody else, I turn on, the late night TV shows, whether it's Colbert, whether it's Jimmy Fallon.
Like everyone else, you mean the other 300,000 people?
Yeah, exactly. And, the way that I see it is that there are an enormous number of people that get their news from these political conversations, despite the fact that at the end of the day, Jimmy Fallon, Colbert, right, Trevor Noah, they're comics, or at least I believe they are, and I think they think that they are. So that's really why I'm asking you this question: is what you see the role of political comedy becoming? Because again, a lot of people get their news.
You got to define. I think to reframe your question, you have to define what the role of your show is or who you are. Because you can separate political comedy from the person who's delivering the comedy or the platform behind the comedy. So if you are just, not going to use myself, but if you're just some TikToker who's doing you're sitting on your couch and you're doing some bit about JD fucking his couch that you thought was funny, then that's in my view, that's fine. You're a comedian. You're not a comedian, but you're a comedic creator testing material and putting it out there. But if you are known as a guy who has a desk and a television show and a network behind you and researchers and writers and producers and talent bookers and marketers behind your show, and you have billboards with you in a suit on it saying bringing sanity to America or something, then yes, I think there's an obligation for your stories to be correct. But at the same time, it's comedy. So if there's a story like JD with the couch, it's hilarious. So make jokes.
By the way, it would be hilarious.
I don't necessarily have a disclaimer that says this story isn't really true. That will kill the joke. I mean, but I don't. It's a good question, and I don't necessarily have the answer for like, should comedians be fact checked? Maybe, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
You know, it's funny because fucking the couch would be absolutely hilarious. In fact,
It would be.
In fact, it's not new either. You may remember one of my all-time favorite comedians, David Chappelle, did this whole Rick James, Charlie Murphy episode, that bit, you know, where Charlie Murphy, you know, is on Rick James' couch. He goes, you know, fuck your couch, fuck your couch. I don't know if you remember that one, but it's absolutely hilarious.
I don't remember it, but I've seen it. Yes.
There you go. Well, it's absolutely hilarious. And I think somebody doing that with a J.D. Vance, especially.
I think so too. Maybe I should do it.
Yeah, listen, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So let me ask you, let me just end the episode because the hour goes by quickly by asking you, what's next for you? Where are you appearing? What are you doing? You know, let my audience know, you know, where you're going to be at, because I think you're fantastic. And I'm not just saying that. I really do. I think, you know, your career is like literally light years ahead of your age. So I'm kind of curious as to where you can be. Plus, you know, if it's in the city here, I'll surprise you. I'll sneak in.
Well, I'm hosting I did to
the DNC. Just snuck in.
Well, I'm hosting the January 6th Awards at Mar-a-Lago. That's my big upcoming gig. So, no, I have a new podcast out. Bill Maher is producing it. It's called Friend in High Places. On my Instagram, @TheMattFriend, YouTube, @TheMattFriend. So follow me on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube. And then I'm doing stand-up, full hour of stand-up, touring it. And then, I mean, it's just like every week, every day, like there's exciting things happening. I'll be at the Creative Arts Emmys coming up, like presenting at that. And then just kind of on the hustle, on the move. So it's just like, there's a lot of MSNBC next week and comedy interviews, and have some huge videos coming out with some mega talent. So just keep on, follow me along, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for a great question.
Because, you know, me personally, I'm going to be doing a couple of speeches over at the Sunoco on Route 52. That's somewhere between like Jersey and Delaware.
Nice.
You know, so just meet me there. I'll be there. I'll be there on Tuesday at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
And tickets at mattfriend.com for my comedy shows. So.
Oh, there you go. Well, Matt, so good to see you, my man. You keep being great. And
thank you.
I will definitely be speaking and seeing you soon.
Thank you.